Breaking news just shook the football world, and what you're about to hear could change how fans look at one of the greatest eras in modern football. Reports surrounding Patrick Mahomes have suddenly raised serious questions about the future of the Kansas City Chiefs, and insiders are calling this a moment that could redefine an entire dynasty. This isn't drama for headlines. This is the kind of development that makes even loyal fans stop and wonder what happens next. For years, dominance felt guaranteed, victories felt inevitable, and the rest of the NFL was chasing Kansas City. But now, something has changed, and the silence coming from inside the organization is making the situation even more intense. Sources say the reaction from Mahomes himself has been calm but serious, the kind of reaction that tells you the stakes are bigger than one season. And when leadership starts thinking differently, everything changes. Before we go deeper into what this means and why analysts believe this could be a turning point, make sure you subscribe and stay with this video till the end, because the final detail in this story may completely change how you see the Chiefs' future under Andy Reid. The atmosphere around Kansas City didn't change overnight. There was no single loss, no one moment where everything suddenly collapsed. Instead, it started quietly, conversations getting more serious, expectations feeling heavier, and questions beginning to surface that nobody inside the organization wanted to answer publicly. For years, success came naturally. Wins stacked up, playoff runs felt routine, and the confidence inside the locker room made it seem like this era could stretch on forever. But in professional football, nothing stays untouched for long, and the latest developments have forced everyone to confront a reality that had been easy to ignore. What makes this situation different is not talent. The talent is still there. The leadership is still there. The belief is still there. But the margin for error has changed. The league has adjusted. Opponents have studied every tendency, every adjustment, every late-game decision that once felt unstoppable. Teams no longer walk into these matchups hoping to survive. They walk in believing they can win. And that psychological shift alone changes everything. Inside the organization, the challenge now is not proving greatness, but sustaining it. Sustaining success is always harder than achieving it. Contracts grow larger, expectations grow louder, and every season becomes a test not just of skill but of endurance. Younger teams arrive faster, hungrier, and with nothing to lose. Meanwhile, a team that once played freely begins to feel the weight of being the standard everyone else wants to replace. The recent news has intensified that pressure. Not because it signals immediate failure, but because it highlights long-term concerns that can't be solved with one trade or one draft pick. Depth becomes an issue. Financial flexibility becomes limited. Small weaknesses that once went unnoticed suddenly become targets. And when multiple small issues appear at the same time, even elite teams are forced to rethink their direction. Around the league, analysts have started asking difficult questions. Is the roster still built for long-term dominance? Can the organization continue balancing star contracts while keeping enough talent around them? Has the rest of the conference finally closed the gap? These questions aren't coming from critics looking for controversy. They're coming from people who understand how quickly eras can change in the NFL. For the players, this moment feels different too. Confidence remains, but it's now mixed with urgency. Every game carries more meaning. Every mistake feels amplified. The comfort of knowing another opportunity will always come around begins to fade. And when urgency replaces comfort, teams either evolve or fall behind. Fans are divided. Some believe this is simply the natural cycle of competition, that every dominant team eventually faces resistance before rising again. Others see warning signs, roster turnover, tougher competition, and the reality that maintaining dominance year after year becomes nearly impossible in a league designed for parity. Both perspectives carry truth, and that uncertainty is exactly why this story has captured so much attention. What makes this period fascinating is that it's not purely negative. Moments like this often redefine great teams. Pressure forces innovation. Doubt creates motivation. The same challenges that threaten a dynasty can also reshape it into something stronger. History has shown that legendary players often produce their best performances when the narrative shifts against them. Still, the emotional side of this situation can't be ignored. Fans became accustomed to certainty. Seasons began with championship expectations, not hopeful optimism. Now, for the first time in years, uncertainty has entered the conversation. And uncertainty is uncomfortable because it removes guarantees. Every win must be earned again. Every playoff run becomes harder. Every opponent plays with extra intensity. Inside the building, leadership becomes more important than ever. Decisions that once felt simple now carry long-term consequences. Do you push aggressively for another championship run, risking future stability? Or do you make calculated changes that may cause short-term struggles but extend competitiveness? These are the kinds of decisions that define organizations for years. The rest of the league is watching closely. Rival teams sense opportunity. Coaches study film looking for weaknesses that didn't exist before. Defensive schemes evolve specifically to limit explosive plays. The target on Kansas City's back has never been larger, and maintaining focus under that constant pressure requires mental strength as much as physical ability. Yet writing off greatness has always been dangerous. Throughout football history, moments that look like decline often became turning points instead. Teams that adapt survive. Teams that refuse to change fade away. The coming seasons will reveal which path this organization takes. What makes this chapter so compelling is that it's still unfinished. Nothing has been decided yet. The dynasty hasn't officially ended, but it has reached a crossroads. The difference between remaining elite and becoming just another contender often comes down to how teams respond when adversity finally arrives. And right now, adversity has arrived in a way Kansas City hasn't experienced for years. The next phase will test patience, from fans, from players, and from leadership. Expectations will remain high, but the journey will feel different. Wins may come harder. Momentum may shift more often. The illusion of inevitability is gone, replaced by competition that feels real again. That's why this moment matters so much. It's not about one headline or one piece of news. It's about the realization that greatness must constantly be rebuilt. Dynasties don't disappear instantly. They evolve, struggle, and sometimes reinvent themselves entirely. The question now is whether this team can adapt fast enough to stay ahead. As the season approaches and decisions begin to unfold, every move will be analyzed. Every performance will be judged against the past. And the pressure to prove that this era isn't over will only grow stronger. Because in the NFL, the moment people start believing your time has passed is often the moment legends decide to respond. And that's why this story isn't ending here. In many ways, it's only just beginning. As the conversation around Kansas City continues to grow louder, what makes this situation even more intense is how quickly narratives change in professional sports. One season, a team is untouchable. The next, people begin searching for signs of decline. And once that conversation begins, every result starts carrying extra meaning. A close win suddenly feels like a warning. A loss feels like confirmation. That pressure builds not only outside the organization but inside it as well. For years, confidence was Kansas City's greatest weapon. Opponents knew that even with a lead, the game was never safe. That belief alone changed how defenses played, how coaches called games, and how mistakes were handled. But now, the psychological balance is shifting. Opposing teams are playing more aggressively, taking risks they once avoided, believing that the gap has finally narrowed. And belief in sports can be as dangerous as talent itself. Inside the locker room, moments like this test unity. Veteran players understand how quickly public opinion turns. Younger players, meanwhile, are experiencing this level of scrutiny for the first time. Every interview question becomes sharper. Every performance becomes part of a larger narrative. The challenge is blocking out the noise while still recognizing the reality of the situation. Great teams don't pretend problems don't exist, they confront them. Another factor quietly influencing this moment is physical and mental fatigue. Sustained success demands deep playoff runs, shorter off-seasons, and constant pressure to perform at the highest level. Over time, that wear accumulates. Bodies recover slower. Motivation must be rebuilt again and again. The hunger that fuels a rise to the top is different from the discipline required to stay there. And maintaining that discipline year after year is one of the hardest things in professional sports. Meanwhile, the rest of the conference isn't standing still. Younger quarterbacks are emerging, faster defenses are being built, and coaching strategies are evolving specifically to counter high-powered offenses. What once worked automatically now requires adjustment. Plays that used to surprise opponents are now expected. Innovation becomes necessary, not optional. Financial realities also play a role, even if fans rarely see it directly. Keeping a championship-caliber roster together becomes increasingly complex as star players earn contracts they deserve. Tough decisions must be made. Familiar faces leave. Depth becomes harder to maintain. And sometimes, the difference between winning and losing comes down to the smallest roster details. A missed block, a defensive breakdown, a momentary lapse in execution. Despite all of this, there is still a sense of calm around leadership. Experience matters in moments like these. Organizations that panic often make decisions they regret later. The focus now appears to be on adaptation rather than reaction. Adjusting systems, developing younger talent, and finding new ways to stay competitive without abandoning the identity that built success in the first place. Fans, however, live emotionally through every development. Social media amplifies every rumor, every opinion, every prediction. Some believe the criticism is exaggerated, arguing that elite talent always finds a way back to the top. Others believe this is the natural end of a dominant cycle. That divide creates tension, but it also keeps attention locked on every move the team makes. What's important to understand is that dynasties rarely end with a dramatic collapse. More often, they transition. The style changes. The dominance becomes less overwhelming but more strategic. Wins become harder fought. Leadership becomes more visible. Instead of overwhelming opponents, great teams learn how to survive close moments again and again. This is where legacy begins to evolve. Early success defines talent. Later success defines resilience. And resilience is often what separates great players from legendary ones. Responding to doubt, adjusting to change, and finding new motivation when expectations shift. These are the moments that reshape careers. There's also a growing sense that this phase could strengthen the organization in unexpected ways. Pressure exposes weaknesses, but it also reveals character. Younger players are forced to grow faster. Coaches refine their systems. Leaders step forward more vocally. Sometimes, uncertainty creates the environment necessary for reinvention. Still, the stakes remain enormous. The fanbase expects championships, not rebuilding phases. The standard has been set too high to accept anything less. That expectation creates urgency in every decision moving forward. Each season now feels like an opportunity that cannot be wasted. Across the league, rivals are watching closely. They know that moments like this are rare. When a dominant team shows vulnerability, competitors try to capitalize before adjustments are made. Games against Kansas City carry extra emotion, extra preparation, and extra intensity. Every opponent wants to be the one that proves the era is truly changing. And yet, history repeatedly shows that counting out elite competitors too early can backfire. Doubt often becomes fuel. Criticism becomes motivation. Teams that feel challenged frequently respond with renewed focus. The coming months will reveal whether this pressure sparks another run or marks the beginning of a new chapter entirely. What makes this story so gripping is the uncertainty. There is no clear ending yet. No definitive answer. Only a turning point where multiple paths are possible. The organization can evolve and extend its dominance, or it can slowly transition into a different identity within the league. For now, everything remains in motion. Every practice, every roster decision, every game will contribute to the outcome. And as fans continue debating whether the dynasty is fading or simply transforming, one truth remains undeniable: moments like this define eras. Because in professional football, greatness isn't measured only by how high a team rises, but by how it responds when the climb becomes difficult again. And the climb for Kansas City has officially begun once more. And now, everything comes down to what happens next, because moments like this don't just test talent, they reveal truth. The noise is louder than ever, the doubts are spreading faster, and for the first time in years, the feeling around Kansas City isn't certainty, it's tension. The kind of tension that comes before something changes forever. Inside the organization, nobody is saying the word end. Not publicly. But silence can sometimes say more than words. The smiles are more controlled, the answers more careful, and the realization is slowly settling in that the next chapter will not look like the last one. This is where dynasties either rise again, or quietly fade while the rest of the league moves on. Because the reality is brutal, the NFL never waits for anyone. New stars rise. New contenders take risks. And the moment a dominant team hesitates, someone else steps forward to take its place. That's what makes this moment so dangerous. One wrong decision, one disappointing season, and the conversation shifts from, "Can they win again?" to, "When did it all slip away?" But here's what makes this ending feel different. This story isn't finished yet. Pressure creates legends, and doubt has a way of awakening something dangerous in great competitors. If Kansas City responds, this could become the moment people look back on as the beginning of another historic run. If they don't, it may be remembered as the night the dynasty truly started to disappear. And that's why the entire league is watching closely right now. Because the next move won't just decide a season, it could decide a legacy. So the real question isn't whether the dynasty is already over. The real question is, are we witnessing the fall of greatness, or the calm before its most terrifying comeback?